I came down Penn Street coming here ordinarily. I just come across up here there. I thought, no, I'm going to go down by the tabernacle and through the neighborhood there, the old house I was born in. And I got down there and turned the corner, came up 8th Street, and the house that Bill and Meady lived in when they were first married, over across the street. And it's still there, and somebody put siding on it and fixed it all up. Of course, my chain of memory began to reminisce about some of the things that happened back there then. And I just drove on up here, and I thought, well, it was in that very living room that he said he had pulled the blinds. It was complete dark, total darkness. And he began to pray, and that's where the Lord told him, he said, you've paid a great price, but you stayed the helm, and you stayed faithful. Therefore I give on you the gift of divine healing. And it began. And I just tell him, we just talking about two people that went out in the country. This girl by the name of Edith Wright. Bill had prayed for her hundreds of times. She was bound to a wheelchair and her body was all twisted. And they'd bring her into church and they'd go out there, her and my dad and Kurt Hooper, and I don't remember who, I believe George D.R. went out there. And they said, well, Brother Billy, most people called him Billy. Incidentally, my grandpa, he called him Willie. He's just old-fashioned, you know. By William, he called him Willie. Anyway, I'll give a little story to tell about that. Anyway, they went out there, and they said, well, Billy, you come to pray for Edith, and we appreciate it. He said, no, sir, Brother Wright, I didn't. I come to pray for Sister Wright. She'd been told that this few days cancer, lung cancer, was going to take her. And he prayed for her and said, in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, I anoint you with this oil. Satan, depart from her and leave her alone. And she rolled over on the couch and began to hemorrhage. My dad said these chunks that were all flesh come out of her on the floor. One son, one of the Wright boys, he didn't have any confidence and faith. Never came to church up there with these folks, worked hard on the farm. And he began to cuss and stomp and go on and tell Bill he's a hypocrite, heathen, and all this and that. And I'm going to the neighbor's phone call the sheriff. Have you put in jail? My mother's dying and you're the cause of it. He did, but when the sheriff got there, Sister Wright was sitting up on the couch. And he saw the mess in the floor, and he said, my, it looks like somebody butchered hogs or something here. And he said the sheriff talked to Miss Wright, and Miss Wright said, no, she said, I'm healed because I'm just well, I've just been healed. And everybody thought, isn't that a miraculous way how the Lord works? All of those years and all the many times that he prayed for Edith, and the Lord never helped her one bit. But on command, and Bill's vision of Sister Wright going out there, he was being obedient to the will of God, to the exact move. And a miracle happened. The blind lady in their neighborhood was declared legally blind, and he said he had a vision one Saturday night that she would be healed on Sabbath morning. And when the service opened, he told her, I can't remember her name, but he told her that the Lord had told him that night before she's going to be healed. She wasn't totally blind, but she had to feel her way with a cane. And he called her out from where she was sitting. She came up there, and he again anointed her with the oil and said, in the name of Jesus Christ of Nazareth, receive your sight. Then he told her to turn around, go back 3 or 4 rows in the church, and tell her who was sitting the third person in that row. She described the man who was sitting there, and he said, go 3 more aisles and tell me the third person in that row. she did. She turned around and said, "Come forth." And she came up there and he said, "Do you think you still need that cane?" And she slung it across the church and said, "No, I've been healed." I drove a taxi cab in Jerusalem, and I guess I gained more knowledge from that than anything that I ever done and learned about people. And driving that taxi cab, making acquaintances with people. My grandmother on my mother's side used to play a lot of cards. Her and my two aunts, they had card parties in the home, and then they went to other people's homes. And this lady's name was Rager, and she called the phone or taxi cab one night, wanted to come up here to the government housing project. It used to be right down the road here a little ways, and going to a card game. And she said to stop and had to stop and pick up another lady. And I don't know, how it happened that way. I didn't know that, but they lived at 10th and Watt Street. I picked them up, came up 10th Street, and I turned down Penn Street. I got down to 9th, and people was all out in the street, and his cars parked everywhere. And Bill was home, and he was having a 3-day healing service. And we just literally got blocked. I said, I can't get through here. I'm going to turn around and go back. And she said, well, what? Said to this lady, Miss Regular, what are we going to do? And this lady made some kind of derogatory remark. She said, I've heard about this dud or something like that. Let's just go in there for instance, to see what's going on. And she said, well, we can't get there. Look at all these people getting around out here. Well, we can hear it anyway. Let's go in. Let's go see what happened. Well, lo and behold, how in the world did it? Maybe 2 hours or a little longer, the dispatcher at the cab company said, Don, go pick up 2 ladies at the corner of 8th and 10th Street, going down to 10th and Watt. I thought, oh my, no. You go back to Price with them, the 2 ladies I let out. I can't even get in there. But went back up there and the crowd had dissipated. There they was standing on the corner. They got in the back seat, and I knew Miss Rager because I'd been there at her house when I was a small boy with my mom, my grandma, and my 2 aunts. And they sitting in the back seat, and I just said to Miss Rager, I said, you're awful quiet tonight, Miss Rager. You're usually a talker. And she didn't say anything. I turned and I said, don't you feel well, Miss Rager? She began to weep. And she said, we made some awful remarks before we got out of this cab. And how come you come back and get us? All of these things that's happening tonight, it's just not normal, just not normal. I said, I don't know. It's just my turn to come out. And they related to me about 2 people that had been healed in this service. One of them was in a wheelchair. And had been in a wheelchair for several years. And he anointed him and called him forth from the wheelchair, and they got up and walked all the way down to the church and rode the wheelchair out. And that one lady said, yes. She said, I don't know about her, but it scared me to death. It just scared me to death. Said that poor old soul didn't look like she could even lift her hand. So she got up out of that wheelchair and walked all the way around this church. They was holding a meeting in my grandma's living room. And my grandpa, he wasn't a Christian, but he had a heart in him as big as an elephant. And he loved Bill Branham. He really did. My grandpa said, Willie, he said, you need a church. He said, I know Uncle Shorty, but he called him Uncle, and he was a little short Dutchman. I know Uncle Shorty, but it takes money to get churches. He said, well, we'll see if we can't do something about that. And we lived up now, if you counted the houses, they told for our house down where Pat and I lived. They lived in the parking lot, and then there's it'd be 4 houses up, a little shotgun-like house. That's where I was born, right there, and I don't know how they tore down and built new ones other than, but anyway, a man by the name of Bill Ingram, owned probably
lots of property,
80 or 90% of that whole area called the Illinois Grant up there. He married a wealthy woman, and she passed away and left everything to him. And him and my grandpa, There used to be a place that raced dogs in Jeffersonville, and they fed them dogs horse meat. If a horse died for anything, didn't have contagious disease or something. Mr. Ingram, my grandpa, before he married this wealthy woman, would skin the horses and sell the skin to the rendering company over Lowell, and the meat to the people out there to feed those dogs. So they was very good friend, very good friend. And he went to Mr. Ingram and told Mr. Ingram, said, those people need a church. And they don't have any money to buy lots with, and nothing. And he said, I want to talk to you about that lot on the corner there. I've heard people say there was cattails growed up in there in wet weather, but I never did see no cattails in there. But by the same token, it was real low, and I did see it flooded out one time with 3 or 4 foot of water in it. But anyway, Mr. Ingram said, well, what do you suggest, Shorty? And he said, I wonder what we can do about letting them have that lot on the corner there. I know it ain't mine, but I know you. He said, well, listen, he said, I've told you that any of this property in this whole neighborhood here, if you have any use of it, you put it to use. And we did. We had horse pastures down here 3 or 4 blocks on the corner, and had another one on down another 2 or 3 blocks where we pastured the horses. My grandpa he had a salvage yard, a junkyard, and bought and sold horses, mules, traded. And he said, that goes for that corner too. And he said, you mean to let them have it for church? He said, yeah, go ahead. No need to me. So then he said, told Bill, you know what happened? He said, you go get that ground, Mr. Ingram, we'll let y'all have that ground and build your church on. And he said, well, we sure do appreciate your help, Uncle Shorty, but it takes, where are we going to get the money to build a church? He said, well, you ask the same question, where are you going to get the money to buy the lot? You got the lot. He said, you go get the church too, I guess. But anyway, there's a man in this town, and he's got a son, or maybe 2 still living, by the name of Edel, August Edel. And he was a bricklayer, block layer. My grandpa went to him, and they was very, very good friends. And he told him about the situation, and he said, well, I'll tell you what. If you can get the men to carry the block and mix the mortar, I'll lay them up for the church. So, Grandpa got a couple of teams of horses and wagons, began to haul dirt and stuff in there, and cinders. And down at Colgate coal model plant, they hauled cinders in there and filled it in. Dug ditches and mixed concrete by hand back there then. Mixed the concrete and poured the footing in, and began to talk to people, and they began to rob their piggy banks and just take in earnings, wash and clean houses, and just like 15 or 20 people just began to put their work together and built the thing together. And I remember I was 6 years old, and they'd had the foundation poured, and Stradle was laying the block, and they used a good big 12-inch block for the first couple, 3 rolls, so it'd be a solid foundation. And I sat in the doorway, and I never thought anything about it then, but since then, I sat there and watched them fellas carry their block there and him lay them up there and watch the walls of the church gradually go up. And I got to thinking about who they was, carried the block and mixed the mortar and all that, and there wasn't one of them Christians. Not a one. They were neighborhood, young teenagers and young men that lived in the neighborhood. Work was very hard to find them because that was during the Depression, right after. And they laid them blocks up, the walls up, and I don't know who it was now, but my grandpa knew somebody out at the quartermaster depot. He talked to them, and they had those trusses, and they were boulder trusses like this, bow truss. He went out there and talked to them, told them how many they needed, and they said, well, we're not using. They had some kind of committee meeting, and they told them what it was for, and they said, well, let them have them. I said, well, we ain't using them. They just go lay there and rock, so just let them have them. So I remember they took 2 teams of horses and 2 wagons, and then it would be a long, it would span the whole church and leave it open. And they put them on the 2 wagons at the angle and brought them down Penn Street to the quartermaster on them 2 wagons, one at a time. And then they made a A-frame like thing with block and tackle and pulled them up and put them up there. But finally the church, it went up. They covered all that dirt and sand with sawdust, regular fine granular sawdust, made wooden benches, had a big cast iron heating stove on each side of the church. And they'd get them so hot in the wintertime, they'd be cherry red.
But
And
Don, did they have sawdust on the floor?
They had
Is that what
sawdust
you're
on
saying?
the floor, yeah. And the wooden benches. And we got a little girl in our church now, her name's Elizabeth. And she is really a good kid. And every now and then on prayer meeting night, Wednesday night, they ask her to lead songs, and her favorite song is Coming Down. And when the roll is called up yonder. And when she leads songs, she has one of them songs, maybe both of them. And I can close my eyes and I can still see Miss Wisehart, and Miss Nellie, and my grandma, and Miss Broy, and others older marching around that church, shouting at the top of their voice, coming down the master calls, coming down. It's going and going and going. You don't hear it no more. People don't shout no more in church like they used to. They used to be happy. Didn't have nothing. Just probably knew where the next bite was coming from. But they loved God so much. And in the summertime, all those people along 8th Street there would sit out on their front porches. They'd raise the windows of the church. And they'd sing, and the sound would carry out through the whole neighborhood. Mm-hmm. I imagine there's many people probably saved on their front porches in that neighborhood as they were in the church, or maybe more. In 1934, he baptized my grandma at the foot of Spring Street in the Ohio River, and I've heard it said that she was the first one that he baptized in the name. And he based his ministry on Acts 2:38. Repent and be baptized in the name of Jesus Christ, you shall receive the gift of the Holy Ghost. Bill had mixed emotions about the gift of tongues. There was a man that attended the tabernacle in Jeff, and every Sunday morning, you could just almost put your money down if you're better that he will stand up and babble something in tongues. Every Sunday morning. Finally, one Sunday morning, Bill just got up and walked to the podium and called his name and said, unless somebody interprets what you're saying, and it edifies this church, I don't want to hear you again, ever in a service here. And he did dumbfounded, he just sat down. And other than times he would visit with us at our home. In 1935, Christmas night, our grandmother died. She cooked a big meal on 1935 Christmas Day for the church people, which was 30 or 35 people. And Bill always bragged about how good a coconut pie my grandma could make. He said, Sister Ida makes the best coconut pie you ever put in your mouth. And he did visit her pretty often, you know, because he thought so much of her. But other than that, he always said, hey, Don, I'll tell you what, we're going to go squirrel hunting. When I was just, you see, the job he had was work for public service. And he became a game warden as well. And he checked those big overhead tension lines and wires. And he had many experiences. He found, later on, they thought it was a coy dog. It was a half coyote or half wolf and half dog. It looked like a collie dog, but he carried scraps with him on his route and fed it. It stayed in a cave up in Anderville Forestry. And he made friends with it, and it got to walking the route with him, so he brought it home with him one day. And the old lady there in that little shotgun house that him and me had rented from, she was just an evil old woman. I can't remember her name now. You remember that old lady's name? But Meady called, come over home one day, and she said she needed help. So my grandpa said, go over there with her, Don, and see what's the matter. She said the dog's awful sick and bleeding and everything. I went over there and said the dog stretched out on a little pallet like in the kitchen. Bill was out on his job, and he'd just sometimes be gone 2 or 3 days, and he'd stay out in them woods. He'd be so far in there to walk back out, and he'd stay in them caves and just make a little lean-to or something, you know, spend the night. He was a notorious outdoorsman. I believe he could have lived off without a pocket or anything. To eat, he would dug at the roots out of the ground. But anyway, that old lady didn't like him having that dog there, although it wouldn't bother nothing. They had it chained up to the shed, and she bleeding out of its mouth and everything like it was. And I went back and told my grandpa, and he said, well, that old lady's poisoned that dog with strychnine, or either fed it some meat with had glass in it. Ground up meat and glass mixed up in it, just tore test and all of it was bleeding to death inside. And I remember Mitty was so afraid, and she so had to tell Bill when he got home so bad that dog had died. But she said, well, nothing could be done, you know. But you know, airplane can do mysterious things in the air with these vapors. But when Bill was laid to rest, they had seen on their tabernacle, and each one of the ministers that come out of his ministry had a little something to say, 10, 15 minutes. They had the county police and city police blocked off for blocks around. Thousands of people come to the funeral. Standing outside, they had loudspeakers on the telephone post. You could hear the preacher speaking. My wife and I was right on the edge of 8th Street at that side door. And I don't know how I looked up, and I looked at her and I said, Pat, she said, what? I said, look. They had a perfect cross. Perfect cross in the sky right up over top of the tabernacle. Now, a vapor from an airplane could have done that easy, but it was vaporized in 10 or 15 minutes. They stayed up there for over an hour.
You've heard these stories about how just us three, how he has impressed our lives. And if there's multitudes of people that were in these meetings that had heard him preach and teach and heal, it's no wonder that there's such a big crowd there at the church. When you've seen that, it doesn't go away. But who else has done it? Who else do they know has done these things? He was God put him here for a special reason.
I've seen Bill walking the banks of 14 Mile Creek and Banks Woods, and another man or two following behind him, because I was up there fishing one day. I looked under the bridge and I saw Bill walking along the bank, and I put my hand up my mouth and I said, "Hi, Willie." He said, "There's a Weber around here somewhere." Anyway, he come over and we talked for a little bit.
My mother just thought the world of Bill Branham. We all did, you know. He was family. Really was family, you know. He wasn't blood kin, but Mita was. But Mother had tuberculosis and was confined to a bed, and she was, the stipulation was that she was to go to a sanitarium, but she would not go away and leave us young family there, and so the doctor let her stay at home, but she had to stay in one room in isolation, and us kids could see her maybe 10 or 20 minutes a day. But Bill would come by and see her all the time, you know, and he was out walking the lines for public service up in Henryville, and he had a vision to come and pray for my mother. He left his post and came to Jeffersonville and prayed for her that afternoon, and she got out of bed and was healed and never did go back to bed. She was healed and the tuberculosis was gone.
My uncle had emphysema, and he was very near death, and my aunt was at the hospital with him, and so I went out there about 8:30 to stay with him and let my aunt go home for a little while, and lo and behold, I had no idea Bill was out on somewhere on a healing service, holding healing service or someplace, and I didn't even know he was in town or whatever, you know. But when he got back in town, his brother Doc, that lives across the street from the church there now, told him, said, "Bill, something great happened while he was gone." I said, "What's that?" I said, "Don Weber and his wife Pat got saved up at that little church up at Utica." And it said that they think Don's going to start teaching the adult Sunday school class. Said the Lord had just blessed him and give him scripture and give him ability. But he said, you know, his uncle was really near death at the Clark County Hospital. And Bill said, "Well, I'll go out there." And I was sitting there in a room with him. I walked up to the door and I looked and it was Bill. He was standing there in the door. Just a perfect silhouette picture right in the doorway. And I stepped out in the hall and he said, the doc was telling me about the good news. He said, oh, you don't know how I am so blessed, but what about your uncle? I said, yeah, he's got emphysema, he's just near death. And I just show you, boy, how it I said, yeah, he is, Bill. He's pretty near death. And he said, would you want me to pray for him? And I said, he don't know a thing in the world. I said, he asked me to, why I changed my life like I did and what all this about getting saved and all this. And he won't, I said, you asked me to do something for you one time, put a little roof on a pump house, and I did. I said, why did you ask me to do it? He said, well, because I knew you would do it. I said, well, that's why I made a promise to God. I know he'd keep his promise, I keep mine. And he said, well, how did you come to that? I said, well, just praying. And he said, well, pray for me. And I said, my goodness sakes alive, what am I going to do? So I went over beside the bed and I remembered one of the songs that I did. Oh Lord my God, how great thou art. And I began to quote that song to him as a prayer. And then Bill came afterwards and I talked to him and he said, well, pray for him, come in. He talked to Monkey's wife. Mister, you're just a young man. I said, yes, I'm only 53. He said, you're just a young man. He said, I just believe the Lord has got some act of mercy for you. He said, there's a lot of life left in you yet. He talked to him, put him at ease. And he looked at me and he started praying and I bowed my head and all of a sudden I heard him quit praying. And I looked up and he was gone. I looked down and he was standing out in the hall. And I walked out there and I said, Bill, what's wrong? He said, Don, he said, there's an evil spirit in that room that I can't overcome. He said that my prayer was hitting that wall and bouncing right back in my face. And he said, if you would, you go back in there. You tell your aunt if she would give her heart to the Lord tonight, he would heal her husband and they could walk out of here hand in hand. And I went in there and told my aunt and she said, I don't believe in that stuff. You know better to come to Aunt Van. I don't believe in that stuff. I don't want to hear that. I am not ready for that kind of a life. And she wouldn't do it. And Bill said, well, I'm sorry, Don. I can't do nothing. Can't do nothing. And my aunt walked around. She come home from that nursing home out there and walk around the house going, didn't know, just chattering along like some little child that didn't know what they was talking about. The last couple of years of her life was terrible.